It is the 16th of March 2014. Many thanks for joining us on Ebru Africa Primetime News. I'm Kamene Goro and we have a whole lot in store for you tonight. But first, let's have a look at the headlines. Crimeans go to the polls. In line with deciding whether to join Russia or not, Ukrainian ambassador to the United Nations says Russian paratroopers have crossed into the mainland.
It's quite wild because not just our Malaysian only, the whole world helping us.
The mystery of the Malaysian airliner. 1 week on, and latest developments indicate that the flight had its communications and tracking systems deliberately turned off. The threat to the lion population. Lion bones become a hot commodity for their use in traditional medicine, driving up exports from South Africa. Cairo attacks. The second attack on Egyptian security forces in 3 days leaves 6 army officers dead. We start off our bulletin with matters Crimea, as residents of the Ukrainian region of Crimea go to the polls to decide whether to rejoin Russia. The Ukrainian ambassador to the United Nations said that he received a phone call saying that the Russian paratroopers have crossed the Crimean border into the Ukrainian mainland.
Tensions are at an all-time high in the Ukrainian region of Crimea on the day of a referendum to decide whether to rejoin Russia. Here in the Crimean capital, a group of armed policemen burst into a hotel where many international correspondents have been staying. Some police officers say it was a planned drill, while Ukrainian officials say it was in reaction to a false tip-off. Here, outside Simferopol, though, it's no drill. Troops, presumed to be Russian, are deployed to reinforce the Ukrainian military base. It's part of a major build-up of Russian military across Crimea. Pro-Russian forces seized this area when Moscow-backed President Viktor Yanukovych was ousted in February after months of protests. But now Kiev says Russian paratroopers have crossed the Crimean border and seized a village in mainland Ukraine.
This is something which changes the situation dramatically. So today we started to speak about referendum, about the territorial integrity of Ukraine within this peninsula, and now they moved further. They moved to the mainland. And what is the final destination? We got no answer. We got no answer that from Russian colleagues and so on.
Residents in Crimea are expected to vote to be part of Russia by a landslide. Ukraine and the West condemn the referendum as illegal. But it's backed by Moscow and many people here in this mainly ethnic Russian region who want to maintain their close ties to their eastern neighbor.
Still with Crimea, following Russian actions on the region, the international community has been up in arms over what they deem an apparent violation of the Crimean sovereignty. Now, French President François Hollande revisited the idea of sanctions together with Italy's new Prime Minister on the grounds that should Moscow refuse to de-escalate the crisis in Ukraine.
While tensions mount in Ukraine, French President François Hollande and newly appointed Italian Prime Minister Matteo Renzi meet in the serenity of the Élysée Palace in Paris. France is now reviewing a third level of sanctions should Moscow refuse to de-escalate the crisis in Ukraine and its intervention in the Crimea region.
As far as other sanctions, notably military cooperation, that is the third level of sanctions, and for now we are at the first level.
Renzi, Italy's youngest ever Italian prime minister, focused on strengthening Europe's core.
che è quello di dire che ai nostri...
I think we have a common political objective with a capital P, and that is to tell our citizens, some of whom are discouraged and no longer believe in Europe, that Europe is where the greatest political gamble can be made. And if someone no longer believes in Europe because they experienced the economic crisis firsthand, then I say that we could have more euros in our pockets only if we have more Europe in our institutions and in our politics.
Potremo avere più euro in tasca soltanto se avremo più Europa nelle nostre istituzioni e nella nostra politica.
The United States and the European Union are expected to unveil a list of Russian officials subject to asset freezes and visa bans on Monday. That's a day after a planned referendum in Ukraine's Crimea on whether the ethnically Russian region will join Russia. For now, voting booths are gearing up in what has led to the most tense confrontation between East and West since the Cold War.
Moving to West Africa, in an unfortunate turn of events, at least 7 people were killed during a recruitment drive by the Immigration Department at a stadium in the Nigerian capital of Abuja.
The stampede happened on Saturday as thousands gathered to apply for jobs with the Immigration Department in Abuja Stadium.
I'm here for the exam, and you were saying that they needed only 30, and they sold up to 6 million forms. If they don't need people, why would they close their site?
The actual number we invited, your eyes can see now, is almost double. We expected 68,554. But what you are seeing now, see, the one inside, how many people do you estimate? And you go out and see. So we are praying that if people can be orderly, we have prepared for 69. We have question paper for 69. We have screening funds for 69,000. But the problem we are having now is the control of the crowd.
The stampede broke out after job seekers scrambled through a poorly organized barricade at the test venue.
They can arrange this thing. We are in all the world is computerized these days. We are in a global world. There is a better way of doing this.
There is a high level of unemployment in Nigeria, especially among young people. In 2011, it stood at 23.9%.
Moving to the northern regions of Africa, even as the country prepares for the elections, with many skeptical of the promise of free and fair election, Egypt struggles to hold on to peace within its borders following the Arab Spring, which broke out in 2011. Now, the second attack on Egyptian security forces in 3 days has left 6 army officers dead near Cairo.
Crowds gather at a military checkpoint near Cairo, where 6 army officers are dead. State media reports that unidentified gunmen carried out the attack, which is the second on Egyptian security forces in 3 days. A senior security official also told state TV that 2 bombs found nearby had been defused. The army is blaming the outlawed Muslim Brotherhood movement, whose leaders have denied any involvement in the attack. An Islamist insurgency targeting security forces has rocked Egypt since the military overthrew former President Mohamed Morsi last year.
The world watches 1 week on, and with no word of the whereabouts of the missing Malaysia Airlines plane, Malaysian authorities continue to broaden their search with the latest technology engaged in the hopes that the search will bear fruit. Now, the latest developments indicate that the flight MH370 had its communications and tracking systems deliberately turned off, according to officials.
With grief on their faces, families of missing passengers from Malaysian Airlines flight MH370 console one another in agony. But there could be a glimmer of hope. Anxious families watch as officials announce that they now believe the plane was flown west after someone on board turned off its communications and tracking systems.
Previously, we had been begging for information, and now that we are getting more information that is valid, I feel there is brighter hope in finding the plane, as well as the passengers of that plane.
One official helping families staying at a hotel says he is optimistic about the search efforts.
Been with him all this time. It's quite well, because not just our Malaysian only, the whole world helping us. If just Malaysia, I think it will be take about 1 or 2 months. This one, 13, 14 countries helping, including the US, US, the China, the Korean, Singapore, Australian, all the well-known company in terms of searching and rescue.
The jetliner's disappearance a week ago has baffled the world. There has been no sign of wreckage, even as the navies and military aircraft of more than a dozen countries scour the seas.
African peacekeepers in Somalia operating with government forces have recaptured several strategic towns in the southwest from the Al-Qaeda-linked Shabab militia, including Ted, Rabdure and Budubao.
The operation comes in the wake of a surge of attacks in the Somalia capital Mogadishu, where Al-Shabaab is fighting to oust the internationally backed government. Last month, Al-Shabaab fighters stormed the presidential palace. The president was unharmed, but 17 people were killed. Jubilant local residents confirmed the recapture of key towns by AMISOM.
Those people took over this town and brought a lot of troubles to the city and to the residents. The Almighty Allah has today removed them upon us. We want to thank the soldiers for liberating us. They didn't want any of us to have a good life. They robbed people of their lives day and night.
The African Union force announced it had launched a wide-scale offensive last week against the fighters in areas near the Ethiopian border.
We were welcomed by the population. We did not only liberate the area, the city, but also there are several youths which was tried by the court of Al-Shabaab to be hearded on the coming days.
Budur had been taken from the militants in March 2012 by Ethiopian troops, who later withdrew, and then it fell back to the Al-Shabaab hands. Ethiopia intervened in Somalia between 2006 and 2009 and again sent troops in November 2011 to battle the fighters in border regions, providing crucial aid to the peacekeeping force.
Talking matters Syria. The Syrian conflict reached its grim milestone of its 3-year anniversary on Saturday, showing little signs of abating. Now, every minute, 3 Syrians become refugees abroad, with about 2.5 million people having sought refuge outside the country. Now, all this according to the United Nations. Every 2 minutes, 8 children inside Syria are forced to flee their homes, with the number of displaced children having more than tripled over the past year, from 920,000 to nearly 3 million. And finally, every 10 minutes, 1 person dies. 3 years into an uprising against Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, residents in Aleppo have one prayer. They long for peace.
It's been 3 years to the day since the uprising against President Bashar al-Assad began, but Syrians in the northern city of Aleppo are still burdened by the war. Juma Rahal, an ambulance driver, was wounded while ferrying the sick and injured. It took him 6 months to recover. But he's one of the lucky ones. This cemetery is dedicated to the residents who died fighting in the conflict.
من بداية الثورة يعني نحن بلشنا بشكل عفوي وبحسنا.
We started the revolution as a spontaneous act. Our feelings don't allow for us to see the people killed in Daraa and other areas and not do anything. So the people stood up to help their brothers in other areas. We started it as a peaceful revolution, but the regime used machinery to kill people in the face of a peaceful protest. We started it as a peaceful movement and wanted to stop it peacefully, but the regime doesn't want it to stop peacefully.
Rahal's young daughter also yearns for peace and the semblance of a normal life.
I want this war to stop, and I want to go to the school and play with my friends.
As Rahal stands amid the devastation, he talks about the hardships the residents of Aleppo have suffered. Shortages of medicine, water and electricity. Aleppo, which has been divided into opposition and loyalist controlled sectors since mid-2012, is one of the harder hit areas. But rights groups say that more than 136,000 people have been killed in the last 3 years, and still the fighting shows no signs of letting up.
Now, following the controversial criminal trial of Paralympian icon Oscar Pistorius, police procedures came under the spotlight during week 2 of the Oscar Pistorius trial, as the athlete's lawyer accused officers of incompetency and theft. The Olympic star is on trial for the murder of his model girlfriend, Riva Steenkamp, on Valentine's Day last year.
Pistorius leaves court after vomiting in the dock. The second week of the athlete's murder trial began with graphic details of how his girlfriend Riva Steenkamp died in the moments after he shot her. The autopsy was so disturbing the courts ruled it shouldn't be broadcast live.
The very graphic details pertaining to some of the injuries and wounds which may be described have the potential to compromise the dignity of the deceased.
The Olympic star cried and retched during Simon's testimony, covering his ears when it became too graphic. Yet Pistorius' former friend Darren Fresco painted a different picture of the athlete as an arrogant young man who was passionate about guns and fast cars.
We had been to the shooting range before and I knew he had a big love for weapons.
But with much of Fresco's testimony discredited by Pistorius' fiery defence lawyer, the state moved on to the physical evidence from the night. Pistorius' toilet door was brought into court, bearing 4 bullet holes and a crack. And more pictures of the crime scene emerged, including the bloody toilet cubicle, a trail of blood down the stairs, and unexplained damage to the bedroom door. But while the prosecution painted a picture of a chaotic and violent night, the defence ended the week with accusations of police bungling, with officers' footprints on the toilet door and Pistorius' watches stolen from the crime scene.
I say when you look at that photo, that could not have been the scene that you saw.
When I first entered, that's correct.
We're trying to find out, when can we rely on a scene photo as a true reflection, and when is it changed?
If the defence can prove police incompetence, it could be enough to cause reasonable doubts, which could reduce the charge from murder to culpable homicide. The trial has been extended now until the 4th of April, but is likely to run longer.
Still with South Africa, security of a country is always symbolized by the strength of its army. But little is said about the part of the army that guards the seas and shores, the Navy. In South Africa, the Navy have chosen to welcome the public aboard its vessels to get a sense of what the Navy is all about.
The South African Navy opened its hatches to visitors this weekend, allowing them to come and explore the naval culture and environment at a festival in Simonstown, 50 kilometers south of Cape Town. At the annual festival that started on Friday, a series of family-friendly activities are giving visitors interested in maritime combat a chance to experience a real naval base firsthand.
This is our 16th Navy Festival that we've organized for the public. The reason why we have a Navy Festival is to let the public to come and see what the Navy has to offer. The public knows about the Navy, but they don't know the core function of the Navy.
Dumalo added that the Navy wants to give the public the opportunity to see a real submarine up close and understand its capabilities. Many visitors showed great interest in the activities and expressed their pride in their country's advanced Navy technologies.
I'm very excited to be here, learning everything about the SA Navy, and I'm happy to be here and learn about the guns and everything.
I felt pretty good because of what our country's technology has, and some other countries don't have this in Africa. So I say South Africa is very on top, like in Africa.
The Navy Festival was first held in 1997, and this year's event will last for 3 days.
Moving to Asia, Chinese workers in coal mining villages who bear the brunt of toxic air and tragic accidents face a challenge of finding new jobs. Now, the Chinese government plans to shut down half of the province's mines in a bid to fight the country's border problem, pollution.
In rural villages such as this one in Guizhou province, southwest China, many people make their living from coal mining. But the impact of the industry can be devastating. Zhang Yan lost her husband in a mine accident last year.
I was milking the cow, then came back. I was waiting for my husband, but he didn't show up for dinner. My auntie told me there had been an accident.
China has long embraced the economic benefits of coal, which provides 2/3 of the country's energy. But Chinese cities are regularly hit by choking smog, and the government is facing mounting public pressure to improve air quality.
They were issues at this year's National People's Congress meetings.
We will declare war against pollution and fight it with the same determination we battled poverty.
But changing course will be tough in the face of swelling energy demand and pressure to boost economic growth, which has sagged to its lowest level since 1999. Uyghur Province has said it will close half the province's mines by the middle of this year. That could leave someone like Dee out of a job.
I'd have to start relying on my children in that case.
But the policy has garnered some support, especially among the younger generation.
Although mine money is good, the work is very dangerous. For example, my father didn't earn much but has lung problems that we do not have.
But despite the risk, a typical miner can make twice what a labourer does and 10 times a farmer's income. And this choice between making a living and staying healthy appears to be one faced by many across the country.
Zooming in on Kenya, filmmakers from Kenya's Riverwood fraternity were yesterday in Nairobi feted and honoured for their efforts and input in filmmaking. The awards, dubbed the Riverwood Academy Film Awards, saw 17 categories celebrated. Gracing the event was Sports, Arts and Culture Cabinet Secretary Hassan Wario.
Filmmakers who had battled it out for top honors in the Riverwood Academy Awards were yesterday feted at a gala night held in Alliance Francaise, Nairobi. A total of 17 categories were created by the awards secretariat, Riverwood Ensemble. The Cabinet Secretary for Sports, Arts and Culture, Hassan Wario, was the chief guest during the awards and expressed confidence in the way the film industry in Kenya is growing.
Ladies and gentlemen, the film industry has been identified as a key growth sector with great potential to spur economic growth and help in the realization of Vision 2030.
This kind of awards for upcoming film industry in Kenya is a great stepping stone for filmmakers in the region, as they will now not only have recognition but also goodwill and support from all stakeholders. The night was full of color and splendor as nominees were called to the stage and ultimately the winners bagging their awards.
Alex Maura Maisha Bure.
Many great artists use this platform to showcase their talent and also to entertain the guests present.
Your talent is a star that will always shine in the darkest of all. Your talent is a star that will always shine in the darkest of all. This star will make you a star because it's a gift from God.
Riverwood Ensemble has a mandate to assist filmmakers access training, better equipment and also create better productions through collective bargaining and to expand the market for their productions. These awards brought many highly ranked personalities in the film industry who threw their support behind the materialization of this epic event, and notable among them was Mrs. Victoria Goro, who affirmed that indeed the film culture and industry in Kenya has come from far.
I think the film industry in this country is one that has a lot of potential, and I think we've come so far. From the 1930s, when the Kenya Information Services began, the very first form of filmmaking in this country, to where we are today, I think we have made major steps. One of the things that I know is that the government has placed very serious emphasis on this particular industry because it is one that is going to create a lot of employment and a lot of wealth creation in this country.
Many of the people who received the awards were overwhelmed by joy as they felt a great fulfillment in what they had done.
So at home I was a comic guy, and so people were like, why don't you go back to film and do it? So that's why I decided maybe it's good that I go back to something that I really love. You know those things that you'd want to do even if you don't get paid? This is something I would want to do even if I don't get paid. Film.
As the event came to a close, optimism was in the air as the films and filmmakers, producers saw hope of a bigger, better platform to showcase their talent and ability. The next edition of these awards will be held next year and is bound to be bigger, better and even greater.
Still within East Africa, it was all about celebrating the rich culture that is enveloped in the Swahili language. Students from the Feza High School got to showcase their love of the culture and appreciation of the language in all their presentations. Now, the competition is inspired by the Turkish Olympiad, which aims to boost the Swahili language and culture in the African Great Lakes region and other parts of Southeast Africa.
Students from Feza High School in Tanzania took part in a Swahili cultural competition. The students showcased their rich African culture through dances, singing and performing small plays.
Tanzania Language and Culture Festival is firstly organized by Feza Schools Tanzania, where more than 272 students participated in 5 different categories. The best students were given their awards today. This competition has risen a lot of attention from all over the country.
The Swahili language, or Kiswahili, is a Bantu language that serves up to 140 million people in 11 different countries. Swahili is a national or official language of 4 nations: Tanzania, Kenya, Uganda, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. In 2015, the organizers of the event are to invite all the schools in Tanzania to take part in the competition, and in 2016, they are set to invite schools in the Swahili-speaking countries. The successful nature of the event has encouraged the organizers to invite all the schools in Tanzania to take part in the competition in 2015, and in 2016, they are set to invite schools in the Swahili-speaking countries.
Talking wildlife, lion bones have become a hot commodity for their use in Asian traditional medicine, driving up exports from South Africa to the east and creating new fears of the survival of the species.
They're known as the king of the jungle, and these magnificent predators prowl around South Africa's savannas with an unmistakable air of royalty. But conservationists warn that African lions are under threat from a growing demand for their bones. Bones like these are sold for up to $10,000 to buyers in Asia, who use them to make tiger bone wine, believed to have powerful healing properties. Lions are seen as a substitute, now that tigers are on the brink of extinction.
Roundabout a whole carcass can go up to 100,000, so if you collect all these bones together, it will go 60,000 rand.
About 8,000 lions live in South Africa, 5,000 of those in captivity. Many are bred to be hunted. Hunters will pay up to $20,000 to kill a lion, taking its head and cape as a trophy. Now breeders can make half as much again simply by selling its bones. Conservationists warn that poaching could be a cheaper alternative.
Lion numbers are declining, and we're very worried that lions may become a threatened species like we've got with the rhinos at the moment.
But breeders say the opposite is true. They claim that selling the bones legally actually reduces the threat of poaching.
If lion bone is available legally on the market, why would anyone choose to take all the risks and the costs associated with poaching?
The number of permits allowing the export of lion bones has increased tenfold, from 60 in 2008 to 612 in 2010. An online petition is calling for the trade to be banned in the same way as tiger bones and rhino horns. But there's debate over how effective that would be.
I don't think at the moment that fighting it in the way we're doing, anti-poaching strategies and trying to enforce the law, etc., I don't think that's going to answer the problem in the long term.
It's too early to tell if the lion bone trade will lead to an increase in poaching. While conservationists want to stamp out the trade altogether, breeders insist that regulating the trade is the best way to protect these beautiful beasts.
That story wraps up our bulletin for you tonight. Many thanks for your absolutely scintillating company, and special thanks to our new viewers all around the Nairobi region. I'm Kamene Goro, and do have yourself a splendid night.